Accessing library computer data.
And to make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Penske Podcast. If you haven't tuned in before, this is a podcast where we are running through all 178 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, giving our thoughts and feelings about each and every one. Right now, we are up to episode 21 of Season 2. We're getting close to the end of Season 2 here. This one's called Peak Performance. Apologies for the plosives on the mic there. It's weird that plosives has a P in it too, which I guess is fitting, but it makes it difficult to say on mic. Anyway, this one was directed by Robert Shearer, I think that's it. It was written by David Kemper, and it aired back on July 10th, 1989. In this episode, while in the midst of a war game exercise, a Ferengi marauder intrudes. This is a good one. It's, the crew gets split up into two different ships. Riker and Picard battle it out with a futuristic version of laser tag and all that stuff. And to talk about that one, we're going to have Christian come back, and Christian has been here before. He's going to help me talk about peak performance right after this break.
Captain, Romulan warship approaching fast from astern. What the? He came out of nowhere, sir.
Bring us about, Ensign. Maximum shields. Full weapon systems.
Disengage, modified.
Lock on. Open a hailing frequency.
I can't, sir. There's nothing there.
Warp 3 evasive. Stand by. Disengage weapons and shields. Re-engage modified beam.
He's quite good.
He's the best.
Hey everybody, welcome back. How's it going? Hope you enjoyed that audio clip. Right now we are going to start discussing Peak Performance, the last real episode of Star Trek The Next Generation second season. We won't consider Shades of Grey to be anything spectacular. And I'm being joined by Christian again. Christian, how are you?
Hey, I'm great.
Good to have you back. You are obviously, you've been involved with the, at least watching the episode since all the way from season 1, being on the subreddit and everything, if I can start to talk. Sorry, it's Friday after work.
No worries. For those of you who don't know, by the way, I am Lord Ravenholm on the Star Trek Viewing subreddit.
Yeah, if you guys like, if you like Reddit, and who doesn't like Reddit, you can go to Reddit/r/Star Trek Viewing Party, and we're basically running through all of the episodes, from season 1, just as this podcast has been doing. And the podcasts are posted there, and a bunch of people with a lot of different opinions are posting there as well. It's getting pretty successful. Like over, must be around like 450 subs right now.
We're about 450 subs, yeah. And we have a core viewing group who, always has been around for a while.
Yep.
And we pick up and kind of lose other people as time goes on, but I'm hoping to continue to grow it. I think it'll grow more once we hit season 3.
Yes, if anything, YouTube has showed me that certain episodes are obviously, well, this isn't really YouTube showed me, but certain episodes get many, many more hits than other episodes do, and I think once we get out of the dredges here in season 2, which we're about to do, and the podcast started 8 months ago. Which is crazy that it's taken 8 months for me to get through 2 seasons, but that's what it is. So, Christian, what'd you think of Peak Performance?
I liked it. As I said before, some of these episodes I remember watching many times when I was a kid, and this is one of them. I like it. It's a fun episode. There's a good bit of excitement near the end. There's actually a lot of good character study. The characters are doing kind of what you expect those characters to do and be good at, now that they've figured out, what to do with them, as opposed to season 1 where they're just standing around.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. It's it's
fun. I really like it.
Yeah, it is fun. It's a good...
They should have stopped here.
It's kind of like... it reminds me a little bit of Arsenal of Freedom, which I think was the first episode that ever really successfully used everybody on the crew at one time. Which is kind of difficult. You can't do that in a lot of episodes just because a lot of plot lines don't call for the engineer to be involved or the doctor to be involved. This one manages it because they basically take the ship and they split them into 2 crews. So you get a lot of play out of everybody. So for a quick recap, I'll just run through it. the Enterprise is chosen to go into a war game situation in anticipation of the Borg incursion, which is going to be coming shortly. So the Starfleet is interested in training up tactically, and they hire this race of advanced strategists to sort of run the Enterprise crew through a war game scenario where Riker and about 40 other people go on this old ancient USS Hathaway, I think it's called.
Yes.
And it's an old out-of-date ship. It's an old out-of-date ship. And the Enterprise is there, and they're going to shoot at each other with fake laser guns, and the computers are going to mark off what would be damaged. So you can it's basically playing laser tag in space. And so the episode is spent sort of working that around and dealing with this alien race who I can't remember his name. It's like
Zach Dorn.
Zach Dorn, yeah. Something, yes. Is it? I'll have to look up everybody who's here.
It's the guy's name is Cole Rami, and he is a member of the Zach Dorn.
Oh, that's right.
We'll see again later on.
Yes. The I remembered his name more than anything, but the actor's great because he's the guy from Total Recall. He's the doctor from Total.
Oh, you're right. That's where I'd seen him before.
Yep. And so that's good to have him back. And anyway, to finish off the plot, Data challenges as a B plot. Data has a stratagema. I can't remember how they pronounce things. Stratagema, something like that. He plays a game against this guy to try to challenge him. He loses his confidence, and then in the end, he fixes everything. And in the war game storyline, the Ferengi interfere with the war game situation, attack the Enterprise, and they have to do a little bit of trickery to get out of it. They scare off the Ferengi ship, and that's the end of the episode. To start off, I love any show or any episode of anything that deals with war game situations for whatever reason. There's a lot of great. There's a lot of great movies that deal with it, and it's kind of like I also like closed room mysteries where like a movie takes place in one room and you have to figure out what's going on. Those are like my 2 weak points for those things. But I think my one issue with this show is that I really like the idea. I wish they had spent more time on the battle between the two ships somehow.
Yeah, I could see that, but I don't know. I like all the stuff that leads up to it so much. I don't mind that the battle itself is not takes up only a small fraction of the episode as a whole.
Yes.
I didn't find myself being bored, and I think it's honestly a strength of the episode that it can be exciting or at the very least entertaining without making the entire thing a battle sequence. Because if you want to put in the battle sequence, I suppose there's some parts of possibly Data's subplot that you could take out, but everything else is I think it would be difficult to fit in more of the battle, especially when those two ships are so wildly mismatched that
I think that was my problem. I don't understand why it has to be a mismatch.
I was thinking about that too. My only idea is that somehow the Enterprise is basically the representation of a Borg cube.
Right.
And the Hathaway is them trying to figure out new ways to fight against it.
But it
doesn't really make sense because I feel like if you wanted to do that, you should put more people on the ship that is representative of you, and
less on the Enterprise.
That's my only idea.
I agree with you. I think they even mentioned that in the episode that they're like, well, when you're fighting against a superior opponent, you have to be, you have to train against a superior sparring partner.
Starfleet is not a military organization. Its purpose is exploration.
Then why am I here?
With the Borg threat, I decided that my officers and I needed to hone our tactical skills. In a crisis situation, it is prudent to have several options.
My problem with the logic there, and I think I'm going to say that a couple times about this one, I think this show does have logic problems in it, but I think if anything, I would argue if what you're saying is true, and which I kind of believe, I think Picard should be on the Hathaway.
Yeah.
And
you should have the majority of your crew training should be you guys. The Op 4 is the person that you send, just a couple people over just represent the enemy ship.
Right. Yeah.
But instead, it's reversed. You want to be training. I don't know. I suppose you could say that they sent over like all their like department heads over to the Hathaway. Everyone else except for Picard, basically everyone except for Picard, who was like really important that they needed to make sure was good. But then they keep a lot of other people on the Enterprise. I don't know. Yeah,
it's just a weird.
It's weird.
I would have preferred that the ships were equal and sort of because
that would involve a better model.
Yes, it would.
They did not have.
Although there's a ton of model shots in this show because they do a lot of switching between the ships, and they have to have like a transition shot.
My money is that over half of them are reused from the battle.
Yes, well, right, because the shot at the end where it's being towed away is definitely the Stargazer
definitely
shot.
Was.
Yep. I would have to go around like how you were saying you enjoyed like the build up to it and the battle wasn't all that there. What they would get rid of, I would have kept the data subplot. I could have dealt with much less. Let's fix the ship up for a half an hour so it can be even. You know, the thing doesn't even have warp drive or any kind of weapons, and so they have to spend a good deal of the running time fixing
I
it.
can see that.
And it also it gives that terrible actress far too many lines because whoever that woman is.
Though I did like the scene where she asks where she can get more opti cable, and Worf just tears shit out of this fucking ceiling.
He tears one of those
anywhere.
One of those toys they have that's like a flashlight that lights up optic cables. He basically just pulls that out of the ceiling. And I forget what she says, but she delivers probably the worst line reading.
And they're gonna fall for it.
Is that what she said, or something?
Yes.
Okay.
When
she appears behind their chairs.
Terrible line. Yep.
Okay, yeah. That was.
Or I don't know. That's the worst one. There's another one where she walks up and she says, "That's not." No, hologram. That's real.
Oh, that's the one I'm thinking of. I thought that because
I don't know. I felt they're going to fall for it. Just sounded way more retarded. I mean, the second line that she says is there to help the dumb audience members know. Oh, that's not a fake.
Right. I felt like that's why it was more offensive because it's like. There's like a scene going on and she just walks into frame and is like, this is actually happening. It's like, okay, thank you.
Maybe she wasn't an actress. Maybe she just walked onto the set one day and no one had the heart to tell her to leave.
I actually looked her up. She's had quite a career afterwards. Nothing I would say is like top notch, but she's been working. So maybe she improved. Interesting. It's
And of course, Ensign Burke was like, in freaking everything as basically the exact same role.
Yes, he's in
1,000 times.
He's in 24. I don't know his role, but he's a big role in 24.
It was a fairly big role in 24. He was the Secret Service agent that became really popular, Agent Pierce.
Yep.
And he was also in 2 Transformers movies as 2 different characters, and he just shows up in basically everything as the military no-nonsense guy.
Right, sort of an underling, not really a head
usually
guy.
An underling. Yeah. He's in Voyager. He's later in TNG. Yeah, he plays that role really, really well. And this is when he's really, really young.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to Modi on the previous episode before this, and it's funny, like you watch these episodes now and you're like, look at all these guest stars. Like they must have been going crazy bringing guest stars, but these are people who are just at the start of their career,
exactly.
Playing an anonymous tactical officer number 1. Although he gets a name, Burke, I think.
Yes.
In this one. He's really played up. And
I like Rob Loach's description of him as Ensign Buzzcut.
Yes, someone brought that up on the subreddit of why was he so nervous when Wesley was getting his little glowing ball out of the Enterprise?
Again, I like Rob's explanation. He was going to hook up with one of those engineering people now that Geordi wasn't around, so he was in a hurry.
He was in a hurry to get out of there, but
he's going back to the second level.
He was definitely playing that scene like they were robbing a bank. And he was the lookout. It's like you can calm down, Burke. You're not doing anything. You can just relax.
I believe the actual explanation is that he's trying to get to Data's match with Kohlrami, or he just considers it beneath him to be escorting this stupid ensign around, so he's not paying attention.
I'd go with the second one.
Because if he was,
then
he'd notice.
Yeah, It's just one of those little minor things. Like you bring in a guest actor, and it just is like, well, he's playing that very strangely. Well, I wonder why that's happening.
He did well. He did better than Ensign Nagel.
He did, yes. Nagel is not. Nagel needs to go back to the minors, I think. And
speaking of guest stars, we have Quark as one of the Ferengi.
Oh, that's right. Yep, it's Armin Shimmerman, or I think that's how you say his name.
Yep, I think so.
He was in the Last Outpost as his first appearance, and he makes another appearance here as the head Ferengi, and plays the Ferengi much better than they've been played. Much calmer.
Yes.
Much more menacing.
Much less movement.
Yes, much less. That would be the notes. Just like a lot less movement, guys. This is no good.
Just stand still.
Stand still. Deliver your lines. Talk about profits, and get the fuck out of there. And that's kind of the sort of jumping ahead. But my main problem with war game episodes about things is that it always turns into a real fight. Like, that's just the get out of jail card that writers use to get out of these things. Like, they're fighting with toy weapons, and someone with a real weapon steps in and starts firing at them, and they can't do anything.
Pretty much.
I would have gotten rid of the Ferengi in this episode if I had written it. I wouldn't have had them there.
What is the conclusion of the war game then? Because ultimately Riker can't win; he's just stalling. And no matter how many cool tricks he pulls, he inevitably is going to lose. I feel like the Ferengi, they come onto the scene very much last minute.
Yep.
And it makes Picard look like an idiot.
It does, yeah.
But
I would have.
I feel like we get to the end, and Data's confrontation with rematch with Kolrami is not enough to bookend the episode. It would just be, we're going all this way, and then the battle happens, and it's kind of over. I just don't think that there's enough.
No, there wouldn't.
There's no climax. There's no third.
There wouldn't be enough there. I'd say you'd have to do, just sort of spitballing, you'd have to do something like a Matter of Honor where they're trying to tell the other ship something and they can't get through to them. Like, you'd set it up by being like, there's no communication between the two vessels. That's part of the war game or whatever. And, if someone tries to, they'd be like, oh, it's a trick, we'll ignore it. Well, there's something critically going wrong on one of the ships, kind of, that only the other ship notices. You'd have to do something like that. Because I agree, like a fake paintball gun fights is not enough to end anything. It just, for the amount of work that they put into it, the Ferengi appearing and just threatening to blow up the Hathaway seemed a little odd. And it's also just a pure plot contrivance that their weapons just don't work because they're using fake weapons.
Well, this is the other. I mean, my problem is that if they are in a place where either one, they're in a place where they're keeping a starship, and no matter how stripped down it is, I feel like they should have more security in the area.
Yeah, how did it get out there?
Or so why? Well, I mean, they parked it there. They left it there. But you'd think that Starfleet would have other ships in the area to patrol their derelicts.
Right, yeah.
Or if they're in a place that is vulnerable to Ferengi marauders just waltzing on in, shouldn't they have other ships escorting them?
Right.
Or at the very least have a better method for disengaging their fake lasers. Because what happens, Burke says at one point when they're trying to switch back to regular weapons that the connections are fused. So they can't swap back to their regular weapons.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's really dangerous.
Right. You think they'd have a if they have to disarm
what if
themselves,
the Romulans invaded?
Right. If they have to disarm themselves, they'd have another ship sort of standing watch or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like not getting involved. But no.
Or if you want, you could have maybe it's two derelict ships. One of them in worse condition than the other, and they're dueling each other while the Enterprise kind of sits back and watches.
Yeah,
and maybe they both notice that something is wrong with the Enterprise, but the Enterprise isn't paying attention to anything they're trying to do to the Enterprise itself.
Yeah. Yep. No, I could
something like that. But yeah, that was my big problem. I felt like they were very, very dangerous, and Worf between Worf being really tricky and Picard being a little careless, they nearly got 1,000 people killed.
Yeah, basically. And Picard being really, really into this. He's the biggest grin I think I've ever seen when he's like underway, especially, which is contrasting how earlier in the episode he was very against these military sort of excursions.
Well, he says the stupidest thing I've ever heard, which is pure Roddenberry, that, Starfleet is not a military organization. Bullshit.
Even though we call each other
guys,
military their officer names and everything.
And then the only other thing that you can compare it to is some kind of civil naval service, but he's like super offended when they compare the Enterprise to a cruise ship. Yeah. So pick one.
He just wants to explore. He just wants to get out there.
It's Roddenberry's ultra pacifist side coming through,
which is,
and I think that of all the things that J.J. Abrams did, the thing that I feel like he got the most right was when Pike is explaining Starfleet to Kirk. He says they are a peacekeeping and humanitarian armada, which I feel like is exactly what they are. They are a military organization, but not for the purposes of war. Therefore,
they're sort of
humanitarian efforts, exploration, and defense.
Yeah, they're sort of NATO. They're like they're a federation of different nations basically that all give a little bit of people to support it, and they are peacekeepers essentially.
Yeah.
It's. I think the main sort of. I think this is a really enjoyable episode. I feel it drags slightly, but I think I do enjoy it. I think that it has logic problems. Once you really start to dig into it, it starts to come apart at the seams a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely little problems. Like also, everyone's shocked that Data can be beaten by a human. Well, just because he can think faster doesn't mean he knows all the little tricks and tips of stratagema. I mean, they act like he should literally be able to just
crush him,
figuratively skullfuck Kolrami through the game of stratagema, and they're just completely bewildered. They're the reason that Data suddenly gets this inferiority complex. I mean, any computer can be beat if the computer has no idea what it's doing.
Lieutenant Commander Data, I'm intrigued by your challenge. Dr. Pulaski informed me of your desire to play a game of stratagema.
But I expressed no such interest.
What Commander Data means is that he would never have asked you himself, but I know that he's very interested in pitting his skill against yours.
Play against a machine. Why should I wish to?
I don't blame you. It's no fun going into a game when you know you're going to lose.
But I wouldn't lose. Now you're no doubt going to tell me that I have to prove it to you.
Come on, Data, you can't let that pass.
Indeed, I cannot.
Then you will play for the honor of your ship.
The honor of the ship. It's your reputation that's on the line.
It's the to talk about stratagema though. It is stratagema. Am I pronouncing that?
Stratagema.
Talk about stratagema. Stratagema does not seem to be a strategy game. It seems to be a reflex game.
Well, I think, Well, I you don't know exactly what's going on inside those little screens. I mean, there could be any number of reflex is definitely a part of it, and that's definitely the part that Data is unquestionably better at.
Yeah.
But what he just doesn't have is an innate knowledge and understanding of the game like Kolrami does.
Yeah,
which you can't put in a textbook. You have to kind of know, which is the reason why he lost. But no one seems to point that out. Like, hey, Data, he just knows more than you through experience.
I agree with that, and I don't know if I feel slightly let down by the ending, but I guess not. He blocks him, which is good enough. But
yes,
I sort of think of the game as
getting that frustrated is worth it.
It's worth it. It's I kind of think of the game as being a real-time strategy game when I want the game that they're playing to be a turn-based thing. Just because if it's in real time, too much of it just depends on sort of like moving your fingers fast, which I feel like Data should be able to do much better than this human guy can do.
Yeah.
It's just a minor point. I would have preferred if it was more of thoughtful thing. It's also a downside of the show. The show can't write characters like this race particularly well because they're limited in how much time they have to deal with them.
So they end up usually as monocultures.
Right, and they're super focused on one thing. I thought Worf made a really good point here where he's like, has anyone fought them recently? And they go, no. And he's like, well, so how do you know that they're any good? Which is a kind of brilliant question to ask about people.
Then the reputation means nothing.
The reputation means nothing, especially for someone like Starfleet, which is like so science-based. You think they'd be like, well, explain it. And
I think they might have an idea. I think it's unquestioning that the Zakdorn are good strategists. Whether or not they'd actually be good in a war is another thing.
A different thing, yeah.
But, who knows? Maybe everyone just humors them.
Right, yeah, exactly. They're so annoying, they just want to stay out of their way.
Yeah, just do whatever you want.
It's just the problem is when you introduce a race that's like, these are the greatest strategists in the universe, and then they come on and he seems like hyper emotional in his decisions. You know, there's no... It's not like he's totally alien. Like when they're losing, he's like, we have to run away. They're like, why don't we just stay here and do another thing? He's like, no, we have to run away.
I think that might be indicative of the fact that they do defend themselves entirely based on their reputation. In far from the front lines, I'm sure they would do great planning out a strategy for victory.
Right.
But you actually throw them into it and they just cave. I mean, this guy's a bureaucrat. He's not an actual warrior. He wants to get the hell out of there as soon as there is his life is on the line. He really probably doesn't even care about the other 1,000 people on the ship. He just wants to leave.
He's got more weird dress things that he needs to wear at home.
Yes.
And also just the last one thing about him is that in high definition, when the actors have thinning hair, you can see that the makeup clearly just stops on their head. You know, it's like the makeup goes up to their hairline and then it's thinning hair that allows you to see their normal colored skin right underneath it.
See, I'm missing out on the HD stuff because I don't have Amazon. Is it free on Amazon Instant Video or do you have to have Prime?
You need Prime.
The HD.
You need...
Yeah, see, I don't have Prime.
Yeah.
But I own all the Blu-rays from season 3 onwards, so I will finally get to enjoy.
Oh, you don't have the first two, huh?
I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I
want to spend my money on good seasons first.
Right. Yeah, it's a little difficult until they go on sale on an Amazon gold sale or something like that. Yeah. Peak performance. You know, I guess the other sort of logic snafu at the end is Worf managing to make these visuals of the fake Federation ship on a Ferengi cruiser appear.
Maybe he's just really good hacker.
He's either gotten really good at this in the half an hour that he's been working on it, or that's just kind of a weird plot thing to get us out of there. And I didn't care for the Ferengi warp drive disappearance thing. Did you notice when the ship zooms off?
I noticed that. Did you say you didn't like it or you liked it?
I didn't like it. It felt like it was something out of 1960.
It was definitely different.
Although I did appreciate the 1960s, the original series communicator sound.
Oh, yeah.
When Riker calls back over to the ship.
Yep.
It's a nice touch.
I always am a sucker for the old style ships. The Constellation class is not my favorite type.
Yep.
But those old kind of thin nacelles and all their computer displays.
Yes,
I always like that style.
The sound effects and everything, and the displays are a little bit more. Maybe not the switches that they're using, which seem a little bit dated at this point. But the touchscreens are nice.
Yeah, but I mean, it was what they had back. Back in TOS, and there's something to be said for it. I liked aesthetically. I always preferred like the Kirk. Not the TOS, but the Kirk movie ships. I thought those were the best looking and most pleasingly aesthetic ship designs.
Yeah, I like their sort of naval out uniforms that they were wearing at that point in the movies too are pretty nice. I think those are like probably one of the nicer ones. Eventually they started turning them into more like jumpsuits. It's because
Actually, I kind of like the TOS uniforms. I mean, they're very simple.
Yep.
But they have a cool look to them. And then when you get to... They tried something that didn't work in the motion picture, and when they went to Wrath of Khan, Nicholas Meyer... Or no... I
think Meyer's the director, right?
Meyer's the director, but I think it was the producer guy whose name escapes me.
Oh, gotcha.
But he was trying to find a way to save money, and so... They had all these extra uniforms, and they had to figure out a color to dye them to make them look different. And red dyed the best, so they went with red uniforms.
Oh, really? Nice.
But the style that Nicholas Meyer really helped create was the style of basically, I think he described it as Horatio Hornblower in space.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of naval, very old timey naval theme. Kind of show in space, which I think really works. And if you're trying to get an exciting Star Trek story, that's the kind of story that you need to go to. Star Trek doesn't do well with just pure action.
Right.
But a kind of adventure on the high seas.
Yep.
With plenty of action, but not just action.
Yes.
I think is when it gets it's the best.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of movies.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And they certainly can't get action down in these early seasons. They shoot the fight scenes so terribly. It's just a real letdown. The final uniform thing would be, I hadn't watched Generations in a while, and I would not have noticed this unless people always bring it up when they talk about Generations, but
that they're using the DS9 stuff?
They're using every uniform, I think, that's ever been created for the show in Generations, and it's bizarre. Like, if you're watching Generations, pay attention to the uniforms people are wearing. They are wearing totally different era uniforms from each other in the same scene, and it's bizarre.
They're wearing the DS9 uniforms, because the TNG uniforms are with all the colors, the main colors like on your chest, and then a black top. Whereas the DS9 ones are all black except for a colored top bit near your shoulders.
Right.
Now, it's kind of suggested that the DS9 uniform is kind of the field uniform out in the field on an exercise kind of uniform, and the uniform that Trek TNG normally uses is kind of their back in the core territories uniform when you get to look nice.
Right. Yeah.
So it makes sense for DS9. It doesn't quite make sense that they're using it two uniforms on the same ship, because there seems to be no rhyme or reason for it.
Right.
I mean, like in the real Navy, people wear a bunch of different uniforms, but there's clear roles assigned to it. But what you really should look out for is that Riker is wearing Sisko's uniform.
Yep.
Because they didn't make them uniforms; they wore the actors' uniforms that were made for someone else.
Yes. Yeah.
Riker is way taller than Avery Brooks. And you can tell.
It's like
because his sleeves are really short.
Yep.
And Geordi is wearing
he
O'Brien's.
rolls them up. Yeah, he rolls them up at a certain point.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like wearing his sleeves up. Yeah, interesting.
Who, Riker or Geordi?
Riker is.
They're just short.
Yep.
They're just it's really short because Avery Brooks is like a full 4 inches shorter than Frakes. And O'Brien is bigger than Geordi, so his uniform looks really weird on him. It's
interesting.
It's weird. I don't know why they did it.
Yeah, you think
it looks a little bit weird.
They have a movie budget. I don't understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand about the Star Trek movies. I don't understand why they chose the directors they did. I don't understand why they can't afford to buy uniforms for people. And watching,
apparently, from what I understand here on a movie, you cut corners. You when you can save a buck, you save a buck because it adds up in the long run.
I guess, but
apparently,
I mean, it's not like it's a total budget buster. I don't understand their.
I would think so too, but I hear that they are notorious for squeezing every last drop of budget out of stuff.
It's just, I don't know if it's a different. I mean, the guy they chose to direct Generations he directed the pilot of DS9. And they liked the guy enough to give him a feature. And it's like, why don't you hire a real Hollywood director? I like me and Clay were saying, I can't believe that there are no directors out there who didn't grow up with this shit and were like, I'd love to direct the Next Generation movie. Why did they stick with a TV director? And it looks like it was shot by a TV director. Everything is very TV looking in Generations, and it's like, pay a director $1 million and make him actually shoot something, that's quality. It's just a bizarre thing.
I think one reason that they tend to... Wow, we got really off topic.
No, that's fine.
I think one reason that they like to bring in directors like that, because Carson, he directed a couple TNG episodes, including Yesterday's Enterprise, which is my favorite of all time.
Yep.
And I think they sometimes like to keep people around who know the material, aren't just fans, but actually know kind of what to do with these guys.
Yeah.
Because you can have plenty of other people have come on and said, "Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of the show and this should be fun," but they end up making a complete mockery of it. And honestly, Generations is more like it's more like a TV movie than anything else. That's what it kind of felt to me. I like Generations.
Yeah.
But I can definitely understand the
it's tough.
I can understand the criticism of it, but I still enjoy it because, and I don't know why they don't get people who respect the source material more often, because Frakes did very well, I feel, with First Contact, and I like Insurrection just fine.
Yeah.
But then they brought in someone completely out of nowhere for Nemesis, and it was so obvious that he had no idea what
the characters
anything was like in TNG, that it's like you're not even watching the same people.
Right, yeah.
David Logan or something, some idiot like that.
Yeah, it's just...
I hate him.
I can't imagine... It's just very odd to me. I can't...
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that there's someone out there that... There must be some reputable director that has, like, name cachet, like Abrams does, and it's like, bring them in and do... Because I don't want the movies to be the show's only a movie form.
Yeah.
Like that, it's totally pointless. And all it does is highlights the problems of the show on a bigger scale. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But now that was an interesting little side note. But we'll bring it back to we'll wrap up Peak Performance. I'll run a clip right now, and then we will give our reviews.
Data, you beat him.
No, sir. It is a stalemate.
No game of Stratagema has ever gone this high.
What did you do?
I simply altered my premise for playing the game.
Explain.
Working under the assumption that Kohlrami was attempting to win, it is reasonable to assume that he expected me to play for the same goal.
You didn't.
No. I was playing for a standoff, a draw. While Kohlrami was dedicated to winning, I was able to pass up obvious avenues of advancement and settle for a balance. Theoretically, I should be able to challenge him indefinitely.
Then you have beaten him.
It is a matter of perspective, Doctor. In the strictest sense, I did not win.
Data.
I busted him up.
So, Christian, what do you think of Peak Performance? What would you give it on a rating?
On your scale, I would definitely give it a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5.
Good. It's definitely above average. It's definitely above average when you look at the rest of season 2. The season 2 definitely was better on average than season 1.
Yes.
But still, especially lately, there's been a bunch of kind of average at best episodes, and I feel like Peak Performance. I'm trying to remember all the episodes in season 2 now, but I think it deserves at least top 5, or if not top 10 of the season.
Yeah, it's definitely top 10
so far.
I'm running through my ratings now to see where it'll stand up. It'll probably be a top 5.
Yeah, because it's good. It has some fun action. It has a lot of good character moments.
Yep.
It has a very Trek message. It's possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
Yep. I think that it does it's well written.
There's a lot good here.
Yeah, it's well written, and it's always nice when the A and B stories connect to each other, which seems to be a problem that the show is having at this point in doing. This one really does. Both stories about competition and sort of testing your opponent. This is an excellent mix of where first season was entirely plot based. They were bringing in science fiction writers that were basically just plot driven writers. Mm-hmm. This is a plot driven story that's nicely complemented by the point where the characters are at this point. And you can actually spend time with them, and it's an enjoyable conversation between people instead of just a stilted, this is the plot, we're on a ship that doesn't work, now we're going to shoot each other, and then the Ferengi come. And that's the advancements that you can have when you have character base. I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 as well. On my scale, 4 out of 5 is be one that you could recommend to a non-Trek fan. I think that one sits there. This one's fairly enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
There's
problems.
It does.
But I feel like overall, I still enjoyed it.
Yep. Especially after a couple of the drudgeries we've just had in a row. But season 2, I think I'd describe season 2 as uneven. That would be my general consensus when this is all said and done.
Or schizophrenic.
Yeah, it's a little bit schizophrenic, and had a lot of reasons for that, but interesting. And then I'm talking like we're done, but we have Shades of Grey after this. And
oh my God, shoot me.
I'm starting to think that I haven't watched it yet. I'm starting to wonder if I'll have trouble rating Shades of Grey, but we'll see when we get there. But thank you, Christian, for coming on. Hope you enjoyed talking about Star Trek. And we'll have you back for something time in season 3.
Please.
When it starts getting good, right?
Please. If you can get me on for yesterday's Enterprise, you will literally make my life.
We'll see what goes on.
I'll even be on with other people. I don't care. I just want to be there.
It
is literally my favorite Trek episode of all time.
It's a good one. What is that, number 15 or something of season 3? I think it's up there. Something around there. But yeah, season 3 is just around the corner. They get new outfits, they get new everything. So you guys, thank you for listening to the podcast. If you are listening on YouTube, like and a comment's always appreciated. If you're on iTunes, a rating review helps me get out there a little bit more, helps more people be aware of the podcast. You can also go to the subreddit, which is r/Star Trek Viewing Party. Everyone's talking about stuff there. Join in the conversation. It's a good time. So Christian, thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we will see you guys later.